Hi, I'm Joe Herbert from Joe Herbert Realty, and I'm here today with episode 3 of the Golden Rules for Real Estate Sales Success. And the first few videos, as I mentioned, were going to be about what I call the 4 stages of the real estate sales profession. I took everything I've learned in 14 years as a realtor and I broke those into 4 stages. And stage 1, if you remember, we did a video already. It was called business acquisition. And that's where you're out there marketing and branding yourself, generating leads, and trying to turn those leads into clients. Once a lead signs your buyer agency agreement or your listing agreement, they now become a client. And once they become a client, that's when you go to stage 2 of this real estate sales profession. And stage 2 is called business fulfillment. Okay? This is where you fulfill the order. A person has placed an order with you. Quite frankly, they're a customer. They've placed an order with you. The order is, I want to buy a house. Or the order is, I want to sell my house. And now it's up to you as a realtor to fulfill that order. This is really where you do the job of being a realtor. This is where you really need a real estate license. You know, you can hire somebody to market and brand and do social media for you. You can pay for leads, but once that lead becomes a client, now it is your time to do your job as a realtor. And that's stage 2, it's business fulfillment. So stay tuned. We're going to get into the details of this. We're going to share some good tools with you. I've got some forms that you can request through email, and I'll send them to you. So stay tuned for stage 2, business fulfillment. Okay, so now we're going to get into the details of stage 2 of the real estate profession, and that is business fulfillment. And as I mentioned, you now have a client, right? Stage 1 was generating leads, branding yourself, driving value to people, and then turning those leads into clients. A lead becomes a client when they've signed your buyer agency agreement or they've signed your listing agreement. And now they have an order for you to fulfill. They want you to sell their home or they want to buy a home. It's time to be the realtor now, okay? This is what you really do as a realtor, business fulfillment, okay? So let's take a look at some definitions for business fulfillment. You know, it's the main job of a licensed real estate agent. This is what we really get paid for, to help people buy and sell homes. Again, a lead has become a client now. They've committed in writing to work with you. So this stage 2, business fulfillment, it's comprised of all the tasks and efforts you do to help clients find real estate to buy or help sellers find buyers. This is just a set of steps in this business fulfillment when you're working with a seller client, okay? And there's detailed every one of these steps, but just from a 10,000 foot view, let's assume, you know, they want you to list their house. You already have the listing, so you're going to set up that listing appointment. You're going to prepare for the listing appointment. You're going to generate, you know, the CMA in their property. You're going to put together a listing presentation. You're going to put together the listing paperwork. When you get there and you perform the listing interview, you should have a set interview, okay? And we have some interview sheets I'm going to show you here in a minute. But you interview the seller so you completely understand their goals. You know, why are they selling? When do they want to sell? Where are they going? Are they buying another house, etc.? They sign all the paperwork. You take a tour of the home. You take all the notes that you're going to use in your marketing. Take your photos for the listing, for the MLS. You take your still photos. If you're going to use some video applications, you take some photos for video. You get the listing submitted to the MLS. You perform all the marketing tasks. And now that property is on the market. You're trying to find a buyer for that seller. You give your seller weekly listing activity feedback. Set them up on auto reports from, we use CSS, Centralized Showing Service. Any of the consumer websites like Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia. And if the seller gets offers, you review the offer details with the seller. You help them negotiate, and the property goes pending. That's the whole process of business fulfillment. Stage 3 is going to be transaction management, and we'll get to that later. But business fulfillment is helping this seller find a buyer. And these are some of the training modules that you should have access to with your broker. How to do a CMA. You should have a seller interview sheet so you can find out why, when, and where, etc. The why, when, and where of why they are selling. What goes in a good listing presentation? How do you conduct a listing appointment? What goes in your listing binder? That's after you put the house on the market. You want to have a binder there at the property with information in it. How do you submit the listing and perform all the listing marketing tasks? In other words, you go back to your office, they've signed your paperwork. What do you do next? How do you put that property on the market for sale? And then what tasks do you do to get it marketed? How to market an open house. How and when to get a price reduction if the home is not selling. So these are all training modules we have at Joe Herbert Realty, and every broker should have these. These are the important processes in helping a seller sell their home. This is just a quick view of our listing appointment seller interview sheet. And there's 8 steps above that you conduct at the listing appointment. And then below is all the information you're going to gather from that seller. The date, the address, the tax ID of the property, school zoning, those types of things. Below that is a set of questions. Look at that first one kind of in the middle. It says, are you the owner, power of attorney, or executor or executrix? You'd be surprised how many times I meet with who I think is the seller of a property, only for them to tell me, well, no, my father really owns the property and he's the seller. Believe it or not, you want to ask that question. And there's a number of questions there that you want to know. And we've formulated this list of questions to really help you figure out whether you should give your time to this seller and how to most effectively help them accomplish their goal of selling that property. It's a great set of questions, and your broker should provide you with some kind of an interview sheet like this. And at the bottom are 5 things I like to bring up and discuss with a seller so they know what's going on today in the world of selling real estate. So that's our seller interview sheet. This next sheet is our listing marketing process. You've gotten the listing now, you've come back to the office. Now it's time for you or your administrative assistant to do all the tasks to get this property on the market so it can get sold. And you'll see everything with R next to it is something the realtor can do or should do. And everything with a double A next to it are things that an administrative assistant can do. But again, we have a checklist. Also, these lists are in our dot loop transaction management system. And they're also tasks that are in our CRM system. So you can track these tasks in either one of our systems. And if you're using a CRM, these should be in there. If you're using DocuSign or Dotloop, these steps should be in there. So you don't need these paper forms. But if you want, you can print out these forms and use them. This is our open house marketing checklist. These are some things that you should do when it's time to, if and when you're going to do an open house for one of your listings, okay? And I like these things to be done first thing Monday morning so that they have all week to percolate and attract attention and let people know we're doing an open house. You don't want to go on your multi-list on Friday and tag that listing that it's going to be an open house on Sunday. It's only got 2 days for people to see that. You want it to be there all week, okay? So that's why first thing Monday morning, early in the morning, you want to do all these open house tasks. And again, we have this checklist. You can give it to your administrative assistant or you can do it yourself. This is a form I like to use when I have a property that isn't selling. I'm the listing realtor, and I need to communicate to the seller that we've done a lot of work and we don't have any offers. And under the first section at the top, you see listing details. That's where I cover all the dates of what's happened, when we listed it, when it expires, when we did price changes, any of those things. And then number 9 in that upper section is how many days it's been on the market. It's great when you review all this information with a seller. It sort of proves to them that you've done everything and the house isn't selling. Section 2 is open house history. Now this happened to be for a seller who didn't want me to do open houses, so I put it in there. You didn't want me to do open houses. Section 3 is the internet and video viewing history. I love this section because it shows them just how much their home is coming back in search results and how many times it's been viewed, because a lot of times they don't realize what's going on online. If we haven't done an open house and they don't see it in the paper, many times they'll say that you're not doing anything to sell their house. So I like to show them this internet activity of how their house is really being seen and where is it being seen. Next is the showing history. and how many realtors scheduled showings, how many they accepted, and how many they declined. I like to show that. I've had sellers that are just constantly declining showings, and then they wonder why I'm not selling their house. And then I say when was the last showing and when did they last decline a showing. And then at the bottom is that beautiful information, the offer history. I love that when their house isn't selling and they don't want to lower the price. And I show them all this activity in writing. They get a copy of this and I get a copy of this. And by the way, sit down and present this to your sellers in person. And then at the bottom you say we've had 0 offers. This little form with all this documentation, it speaks volumes. So I love using this when I need to get a price reduction. Okay, so let's say you're working with a buyer client. These are 10 steps that are pretty standard when you're working with a buyer. Again, I like to interview a buyer at my office, at Panera, whatever, Starbucks, and we have a real nice buyer interview form that I've built up over the years, and you should have one. By the time I get done with that form, I know whether I should ever get in my car and show that buyer one home. Let's face it, we get paid for our time and our expertise. And you want to make sure you should be giving somebody your time because you want to get paid. Number 2, obvious, make sure they're pre-approved or help them get pre-approved. Number 3, set them up on an auto notification in the MLS or from your website. Number 4, you're going to start scheduling home tours. Number 5, you're going to actually show homes. If they like a house, they want to make an offer, you're gonna put together a CMA, you're gonna get the purchase documents together so you can help them figure out and show them what an intelligent offer is. They're gonna sign and initial all the paperwork. You're gonna submit it to the selling agent. You're gonna help them negotiate the best price and terms for the buyer, and the property goes pending. And again, stage 3 is transaction management. That happens after a property goes pending. We're in stage 2 right now, which is business fulfillment. If there's something that you didn't notice up above in those first few steps, I didn't list that the buyer signs your agency agreement. I am typically working with people I know, repeat business, and referrals. So I never worry about that, but it is a very, very good idea to have your buyer sign an agency agreement, even if it's a non-exclusive agreement. You want it in writing that they are working with you, okay? So pardon me for not having that step up there because I'm used to working with people I know. These are training modules, again, that should be available to you. Okay, conducting your buyer interview. Again, the why, what, the why, when, where, and who. Who's the buyer? When do they want to buy? Where are they looking? Why are they buying? How to do a CMA. When you're going to go show a bunch of homes, what do you want to bring with you for that buyer? How to schedule showings. How to actually show a home. Okay, it's time to generate a purchase agreement. And then what do you do once the buyer's agreement is accepted? Okay, well, you bring in this paperwork back to the office. There's a whole bunch of tasks now that need to get ready to be done so you can get that transaction management started. And here's our buyer interview sheet. I've developed this over 14 years. Every time something didn't go the way I wanted it to go, and I would look back and I would say, you know what, I should have asked that question 3 months ago. Well, it's on this form, okay? These are all the questions I need to ask to determine whether I can successfully help this person get to the closing table, because that's when we get paid as agents. The second half, the page 2 of this form, is what I call the buyer proceeds sheet. This is where I make sure that they can buy the house they really want to buy, and where is the money coming from for them to get to the closing. One time I listed a house for somebody, didn't ask some of these questions, and we overpriced their house, and they needed to sell it in an overpriced position to have the equity to buy the more expensive house they were looking at. Well, I just spun my wheels because I couldn't sell their house for more than what it was worth. I showed them a bunch of houses that they couldn't buy. I didn't ask the question of, well, gee, if your house doesn't sell, where else would you be getting the down payment from? So this is a great 2-page sheet, the buyer interview sheet and the buyer proceeds sheet. So that's the end of stage 2, which is business fulfillment. And this is episode 3. And next would be episode 4. And that is going to be stage 2 of the real estate sales profession. And that's going to be transaction management. So thanks for checking out this video. And in a week or so, we'll have episode 4.